Chapter 9 notes. After resting for half an hour, Grui, who already considers himself Klein, recovered when he noticed for more black dots on the back of his right hand, which happened to form a small square. The four black dots faded from dark to light and quickly disappeared, but Klein knew they were still hidden in her body, waiting to wake up. 4 points, a square, are for corners and for portions of food corresponding. In the future, I don't need to prepare staple food and can directly go to the pace and mantra. Klein had a vague guess. This seems to be good, but there are a lot of strange origin. Lack of understanding of the things always make people afraid. The thought that the inexplicable magic of Earth could work here, the strange passage of his own sleep, the mysterious, psychedelic fog world of no idea what it meant, the whispering that lingered around the ritual and drove people crazy. Klein could not help but shudder. I shivered in the heat of late June. He had heard us saying, the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest fear is the fear of the unknown. Unprecedented and unstoppable, he had a strong urge to get in touch with the mysterious, to learn more, to break away from the unknown, and a desire to bury his head and pretend that nothing had happened. The sun was shining out of the window, covering the desk with a layer of gold dust, and Klein looked at it as if she felt a touch of warmth and hope. He relaxed a little, and at once felt a flood of raging exhaustion. Last night's sleepless, just consumed, let his eyelids heavy like lead white, cannot stop drooping. Shaking her head, Klein stretched out her hand to support the edge of the table and, ignoring the rye bread in the corners, staggered to the low bed. As soon as she lay down, it touched the pillow and passed out. Gollum, hunger awakens Klein. He opens his eyes and feels refreshed. Except for a headache, he rubbed his forehead and sat up, feeling that he could now eat a whole cow. He straightened the folds of his clothes, returned to his desk, and picked up the silver pocket watch with the vine pattern. Pa! Thekab shot open, the second hand ticked away. 12:30, slept for more than 3 hours. Klein swallowed and slipped her watch into her linen shirt pocket. On the northern continent, the day is similarly divided into 24 hours, 60 minutes in each hour, and 60 seconds in each minute. Whether each second is the same length as the Earth, Klein did not know. For him, the words occult, ritual, fog world, etc. could not come to mind at this moment. And the most important thing at this moment was food. Food. You can't figure it out until you're full. To do things. Without hesitation, Klein retrieved the 4 corners of the rye bread, shook off a little dust, and planned to eat one of them for lunch. As it was the custom in his hometown to share the sacrificial offerings, and the 4 loaves of rye bread did not seem to have changed. He felt that he had to be frugal with only 5 pennies in his pocket. Of course, this also has the subtle influence of the original owner's memory fragments and life habits. Because gas was too expensive to use for lighting, he removed the stove and added more coal. And Klein paced back and forth, waiting for the water to boil. That rye bread, you choke on it. Ah, is it necessary to eat black bread early, black bread at noon, and eat meat in the evening? No, if Melissa wasn't thinking about my upcoming interview, she'd only be eating meat twice a week. Idle and too hungry to think seriously, Klein looked around. The thought of the pound of lamb made his eyes look a little green in the cupboard. No, I have to wait for Melissa. Klein shook her head violently, dismissing the idea of cutting it in half and doing it now. As a single dog adrift in the big city, although he mainly eats outside, but the basic cooking skills or honed out, not delicious, but also enough. Turning around, Klein was about to be out of sight when he suddenly remembered that in addition to buying meat this morning, He had bought tender peas and bought potatoes. Potatoes, inspired, Klein whirls back, rushes to the cupboard, and pulls out 2 potatoes from the pile. He goes to the communal bathroom and cleans the skin of the potatoes, then puts them directly into a pot and boils them with water. After a long time, he took the condiment box out of the cupboard, lifted the lid, and sprinkled a little yellow, coarse salt into the water. After waiting patiently for a few more minutes, Klein lifted the kettle, poured the non-soup into several cups, poured into a large bowl, and finally broke out the 2 potatoes and placed them on the table. Oomph! Hepiled a little and blew on his hand, and the smell of boiled potatoes wafted out, appealing. With her mouth watering like crazy, Klein picked up the potato and took a bite, even though it was half peeled and still a little hot. Pink. Smell. The mouth is sweet. Klein's heart was filled with emotion, and she gobbled down 2 potatoes, even eating some skin. Until this time, he picked up the big bowl and drank the soup beautifully, and the faint taste of salt washed away the dry hair of his mouth. It was my favorite when I was a kid. Klein patted his stomach while silently feeling, while breaking the rye bread with soup-soaked soft eat. Perhaps the previous ritual consumption was too much. He ate to a whole pound. Drinking soup and cleaning, Klein felt completely alive and experienced the joy of being born as a human being and enjoyed the brilliance of the sun. He sat back down at his desk and began to think about what he should do next. You can't escape. You have to find a way to get in touch with the mysterious realm and become extraordinary in the mouth of the righteous and the hanging people. Overcome the fear of the unknown. The only way now is to wait for the next meeting and see if I can sit in on the recipe for the spectator potion or some other mystical knowledge. There are still 4 days until Monday, and until then, we must face the question of the original owner himself, why he committed suicide, what happened to him. Unable to go back in time, Klein picked up the open notebook, intending to rummage through it for clues, to see if he could fill in the missing pieces of memory. Apparently, the original owner had a habit of taking notes, and also had a hobby of using notes as diaries. Klein knew perfectly well that the cabinet, which served as the right leg of the desk, was full of finished notebooks. This one has been used since May 10th, and the first part is mostly related to the school, involving tutors, and involving knowledge. On May 12th, Mr. Isaac mentioned that the lingua franca of the Balang Empire on the South Continent was also derived from the Old Fusak language, a branch of the Giant language. Why is that? Did all spiritual beings ever speak the same language? No, that must be wrong. Even though in the Book of Revelations of the Night and the Book of Storms, in times older than old, giants were not the only masters of the continents, and elves, and fae, and dragons. Well, it's all just legends, just myths. On May 16th, Senior Associate Professor Cohen and Mr. Isaac discussed the inevitability of the Age of Steam. Mr. Isaac thought that it had chance, if not for the sudden appearance of the Great Russell. Perhaps the Northern Continent and the Southern Continent, still in the age of cold arms. The teacher thought that he was too much emphasis on the role of the individual. He believed that with the development of the times, without the Great Russell and Robert the Great. In short, the Age of Steam may be late, but it's certainly coming. I prefer to discover new things and restore the history that has been shrouded in fog. Maybe I should study archaeology instead of history. On May 29th, Welch came to me and said he had obtained a book of quaternary notes. My goddess, quaternary notes. He didn't want to go to the archaeology department. He wanted me and Naya to help interpret what was written. And how could I say no to something like that? Of course, it would have to be after the graduation thesis. At this time, I can't afford to be distracted. Seeing this, Klein's spirit was shaken up, and compared with the previous history reading notes and conceptual disputes, the newly emerged quaternary notes were more likely to lead to the suicide of the original owner. Quaternary is the era before the Heidi-Jiyuan, the history of which is full of fog and many missing, even unearthed tombs. Ancient cities and documents are very few. Historians and archaeologists can only rely on the 7 churches' vague, mainly religious education of theological classics to piece together a little original. The Solomons, the Tudors, the Trensosters. Determined to break through the fog and restore history, Klein had little interest in the more mythological first 3 periods, and only cared about the quaternary, also known as the Age of the Gods. Hey, in this way, the original owner values the interview and worries about the future employment. In fact, there is no need. Klein couldn't help but exclaim. At present, the university is still very rare. The vast majority of students are children of the aristocracy and rich families. As long as civilians enter, even if they are discriminated against because of their identity, they are not included in other social circles. But as long as they are not extreme, relying on group discussions, collective activities, and other things, they can still obtain certain network resources, which are very precious network resources. For example, Welch McGarwin is the son of a banker in the town of Constantin, in the county of C, the kingdom of Rouen. He is a bold and generous man, and because he has long been in a team with Klein and Nyatt to do homework and make reports, he habitually asks them to help. Without much distraction, Klein continued reading Thenit's on June 18th, graduation, farewell, my Hoi University. On June 19th, I saw the note, and after comparing its structure, roots, and so on, I found that it was a variant of the old Fausac language, which, more precisely, has been evolving slightly for more than 1,000 years. On June 20th, we read the first page, which was written by a member of a family called Antigonus. On June 21st, he mentioned the Black Emperor, which completely contradicts the era derived from the previous content. Is the teacher's view wrong? The Black Emperor is actually the common title of every emperor in the Solomon Empire? On June 22nd, when the family name Antigonus appears to have had a prominent position in the Solomon's Empire, the owner of the note mentions a secret deal with someone named Tudor. The Tudors. On June 23rd, I stopped thinking about the note, stopped going to Welch, and prepared for my interview. This is very important. On June 24th, Nyatt told me they had something new, and I thought I'd go and see it. On the 25th of June, from the content of the new interpretation, the owner of the note accepted a mission to go to the main peak of the Hornix Mountains, to visit the night country at the top. My goddess, the main peak of the Hornix Mountains is more than 6 kilometers. How can there be a country? What do they live on? On June 26th, are all these strange things true? Here, the notes are over. Jominggrui is June 28th in the early morning through. That is to say, the note of June 27th actually has that sentence. Everyone dies, including me. Klein turns to the page she first saw and makes a slightly creepy judgment. He felt that to solve the mystery of the original owner's suicide, he should go to Welch and look at the contents of the ancient notes. But with a wealth of novels, movies, and TV series experience, he felt that if he went, if the matter was really relevant, it would probably encounter unknown dangers. Those who knew that the castle had ghosts and went to die are warning records. Don't go or not, escape will never solve the problem, will only make things more and more tired until the dam burst, completely submerged themselves. Call the police? Can't say I killed myself. Boom, knock knock. Suddenly there was a sharp knock at the door. Klein sat up straight and listened. Boom, knock knock. That knock out through the empty corridors of the floors.